It doesn't matter if Deku stays at UA. It may seem that because Deku is in UA school it will be more dangerous, but it is not going to matter. Deku almost got caught by All For One villains group. All For One was sending more villains to wear Deku down, which was working. Deku had no way of continuing fighting the way he used his power and the way he was treating his body. Deku was fighting non-stop and had little room to recover. His body wasn't going to sustain such abuse that he was going through. He would have cracked sooner. He also had not eaten food in a long time or drank water. It wasn't good that Deku was fighting on an empty stomach and without food for a long time because it was killing him. He wasn't sleeping too, which worsened his body. All the thing Deku wasn't doing to taking care of his body is the worst thing that a person can do because those things keep him alive. It is impossible to live and fight while not eating, drinking, and sleeping. Deku was getting closer to death and be overpowered by the villains. When the villains would have caught Deku, most of the Hope UA students and heroes would have been lost. All For One need Deku One for All ability, and All For One having Deku would have made the situation worse than it was. All For One would have to wait until Shigaraki's body can handle One For All and steal it from Deku. Deku would have no way of breaking out of All For One hold because his body is exhausted. All For One most likely have a plan to hold Deku so he wouldn't break free. All For One has a plan for a lot of things, and it wouldn't make sense that he doesn't have a plan to hold Deku when he is the main target of his plan, and he wants to capture him. Now that villain had Deku, they would have come to the UA school and to the other heroes because they are the last line of defense. The villain has been trying to kill UA student and wasn't going to stop until it happens. UA school was always going to be dangerous for anyone to be because heroes live there. Whether Deku lives in UA school or Deku leave UA school, UA would have been a battleground eventually. All For One would have killed the UA students or steal their quirks then kill them. UA students wouldn't be able to stop the villains because All For One and Shigaraki are too strong for them, and Shigaraki would have Deku quirk. Even without Deku quirk, Shigaraki is still too strong for them. Shigaraki would have been a lot stronger than he was before in the Paranormal Liberation War arc. The whole keep Deku away from UA doesn't make sense because he is their key to defeating All For One, and he is struggling to fight and do everything on his own. Deku getting caught would mess up the whole thing and make the whole thing trying to save UA pointless. It is better the UA school defend Deku instead of letting him fight everything on his own. Deku can't do it alone, and the way he handles the situation isn't good. Deku needs help from UA students and pro heroes to fight All For One and the League of Villains, and more. Deku is in a different situation than All Might be in when All Might fought All For One. Deku didn't master any of his quirks, and his body is still adapting to One For All. Deku's body can't handle the pressure that All For One is giving his body yet. Deku can get injured by using One For All. Deku is young. Deku has more quirks than All Might did. Deku doesn't have as much control as All Might did. All Might mastered his quirk young and didn't have much trouble controlling it. All Might body adapted to One For All quick and wasn't getting injured from using his quirk. All Might have an advantage compared to Deku because he had adapted in time on his hand. Also, All Might be a grown man when he beat All For One and most of the villains. All Might in his prime didn't lose a fight, and most villains couldn't handle his punches. Here is the thing: All Might beat All For One by himself, and he got injured from the All For One fight. All Might injures made him not be able to transform into his most powerful form for a long time. All Might become powerless in his human form without the ability to stay in his transformation. Now All Might did beat All For One again, but he had to use up all the power he had left. All Might alone was always able to beat All For One, but it always cost him something of high value. Deku can't do what All Might do, and that is fine. Deku needs all the help that he can get from his allies, and that is something All Might think he didn't need from his allies when he was fighting. Deku shouldn't try to repeat All Might feat now because it didn't go well for All Might and end up making the situation. All Might is now powerless. Deku could do better by sticking with the group and possibly make strategies to combat All For One and the League of Villains. The League of Villains is more powerful than any groups that All For One had before. Deku and UA student could find ways to combat All For One and the League of Villains with their power. UA students may get hurt and killed, but that is what they sign up for in UA. It is not like the UA students want to die, it is just the job that they took will have risks. The heroes that the UA students look up to took the same risk as them. The UA student has been in life and death situations, and it isn't going to stop until all villains are stopped. Here is the thing: all villains will never stop because they will continue to exist, but the heroes can slow them down and lock them up so that people won't always have to watch their back for a villain to come. A society with an overwhelming amount of villains is bad, and the heroes prevent that from happening. All for One caught Deku. The society they have will be ran by villains. It would be over for society if that were to happen. Deku should stay with UA so that Deku and UA can better prevent villains from causing more damage than they already did. Deku leaving UA won't stop All for One from attacking it. All for One could attack UA's school just to draw Deku out, and that would mean that it was pointless for Deku to stay away from UA's school to protect everyone. Everything that Deku worked for would have been meaningless in the end. Deku staying in UA will make a better outcome for everyone.
Like, comment and subscribe. This is the end of the video.